Hey, everybody, this is Billy and Shaun with Peterson Wealth Services Point of View. So, obviously, it would be important to hear from us on a day like today. We know that people are hearing the market noise, and you're going to hear some scary words like crash and market correction, and everything's being destroyed. Values are dropping like a rock. So, we're watching that. I know it's not fun for anybody. No one likes to go through market declines like we're seeing right now. And I think it's important for us to just take a few minutes and share with you our thoughts on this so we can bring in some rationality and the actual events that are transpiring rather than just listening to the mainstream media, which will do the old trick of creating as much fear and anxiety as possible. So I hope you will watch this and just listen to what we have to say before you decide you're going to jump out the window. Let's talk about the facts. The facts of the situation right now is we have the Trump administration that has decided to implement across-the-board tariffs to other countries who want to sell goods and services to us. So let's make sure we put that into context. It's the countries outside or companies outside of the U.S. that want to sell to the U.S. So those are going to receive a across-the-board tariff of 10%. And then some, Shaun, are going to see a little higher tariff depending on the tariffs that they
have on us.
Right?
Yeah. So the average tariff rate is going to be about 25% across all countries.
Yeah, which is the media going crazy over it. Like, this is an unprecedented move. This has never been seen before. We're so mean. It's so cruel. But let me ask you a question. If you're listening to this, why is it so fair for the other countries to do that to our companies who want to sell to them? I mean, put that in your mind a little bit and change the perception or maybe the thinking pattern of what's going on and why we're just making it more of a level playing field. So this is going to change policy regarding trade. 100%. That's why there's so much uncertainty going on, attempting to create this more level playing field or level trade balance. We've been running a negative trade balance for decades. Not only that, but we've been running a huge deficit as a country. In other words, we keep going in the hole on our spending versus our income year after year after year, which has led to this massive accumulation of debt. And I think that's lost on most people is they don't realize, why are we doing this? What is the underlying reason? We're going to get into that in a minute. But we have $36 trillion in debt, guys. We've told you all that many times. And I guess sometimes it feels like we're the only ones that are talking about it and we're the only ones who seem to be worried about it. But I think that's one of the issues here is looking at the debt, the deficits, the trade balance, and trying to rectify some of it. Also, it's important to note that before the U.S. funded itself with income tax from all of us, well, most of us, how did it fund itself? It funded itself with tariffs.
Yeah.
So that was prior to 1913 when they established the income tax system. So they were taxing all of us now on the the money that we made annually. Before that, it was tariffs. We are the strongest country in the world from an economic standpoint, and all countries want to do business with us. So therefore, we have some negotiating power. We have some leverage. And I think Trump is, from a business standpoint, in his mind, he uses these as a negotiating tactic. He wants to be able to create a better situation for our country. So other countries are going to have to, they're going to have to come to terms or cut some of their tariffs or some of their expenses that they impose on us.
But doesn't it also motivate, like if you're a CEO of a big company, that motivate you a little bit to maybe bring some of your manufacturing facilities, your goods, services back to the United States?
That's the great comment, because think about what he's trying to do even with the auto industry. He's saying, look, if you manufacture your automobiles here, you don't pay a tariff. But it's already shown to have brought in billions of dollars from foreign investment.
Mm-hmm.
So I want you guys who are listening to think about the positives that are going to potentially come from this. But we also know that there's some short-term negatives. So we want to touch on that and make sure you're aware why this is going on, why the market is correcting so drastically today. Well, there's market shocks. And that just means typically uncertainty leads to like sell first and ask questions later. That's the mentality that a lot of people take. And so when people start selling, it perpetuates selling. More people think they need to sell because they grow fearful and they start listening to the media or the pundits, and then it becomes almost politicized. So on one side of the aisle, you're going to hear all the negative, nothing positive, everything's destroyed. Everything that you can imagine is going to hell. So why would you want to be an investor? Why would you even want to live in this country? I mean, take it to any extreme level you want. They don't ever talk about positives. And that bothers me. And I've said that ever since we've been in business here, ever since I've kind of opened my eyes to the propaganda that's spilled by the media. They do not give you the full picture. They do not give you full context. They do not let you make your own decision from analyzing information and just thinking strategically. They want you to believe what they say you should believe. They want to tell you what to think. And I think that's so short-sighted. And I think too many people, the majority of people, fall into that trap. But the other problems, and Shaun and I are going to just mention a few, are possible trade wars. Are other countries going to retaliate even further? That's a possibility. We don't know how they're going to react. Now, Trump's banking or betting on them more or less coming to the table and wanting to negotiate, providing concessions to us. Because remember what I said, they don't receive that additional tariff unless they're charging us tariffs. So this is not us being mean and throwing down some unquestionable charge for people, for other countries to do business here. It's essentially saying we are in a problem. We have a problem, a major hole on our deficit. We have to figure out how to fund this. This is going to take some tough decisions. And I really think it's going to take some really a change in the way we've been doing things in order to accomplish it.
I think another concern that we're hearing more and more is it's raising the probability or likelihood of a potential recession. Right. Cost of goods and services go up. Does that slow down the consumer? Does that eat into corporate profits? Does that effectively lower GDP, gross domestic product? And if that happens, if GDP goes down for 2 quarters in a row, that's a recession. That's how we define a recession. Now, back in 2020, that definition went out the window.
They changed it.
They changed it all of a sudden because no one wanted a recession on their
Who is they?
I don't know.
The government at the time and the media.
At the time, the media at the time, again, trying to twist that narrative. And we've been talking for a while now that it would not surprise us to see a recession. And I feel like when we talk with clients about that in review meetings or folks on the phone or just out there, that their stomach just drops when they hear recession, because the one that everyone remembers is the 08-09 real estate collapse. It just brought everything down with it. And that was a terrible, terrible time. But just because we say the word recession doesn't mean we're not equating it to that. It could just be a temporary slowdown. And hey, we're resetting here at new levels. And the economy, the stock market is resilient long term. It really is. I can show you any chart. It's in the short term where you get some pullback, some volatility, and it can be tough on people. There's no doubt about that. But you're going to start hearing that more, and we've already started to hear it more in the news media and reporters out there. So don't let that keep you up at night. Recessions are common. I think, man, I don't know how many we've had since.
Well, there's been a lot, and I think we could probably be entering one now. I really think we actually had one in 2022. We had a huge market decline when the Fed started raising rates. And by the way, the Fed has been complicit in a lot of this stuff. When we started printing money, that led to inflation. Remember, inflation is the devaluing of dollars. So it takes more of them to buy goods and services across the board. Tariffs don't directly create inflation. Tariffs are going to increase prices possibly on certain goods and services that are impacted by that. So in other words, foreign goods and services doesn't mean that the same product or the same types of products are going to be going up here in the US from those manufactured here at home. So that's the reason why we kind of differentiate. Don't let the media just blanket cover your mind on what tariffs are doing and what they're going to do.
Guys, inflation was already here. We've been
Sure.
talking about inflation for 5-6 years. And
now they're saying that now it's just suddenly showed up
because of tariffs. It's not true. I'll go out there on the record and say that is not true. When we printed a bunch of money, remember everyone's getting checks. We had the PPP stimulus package for businesses. I mean, I can't remember how many billions of dollars we printed, but we did. So you throw all that money into the economy, money is on paper, and that devalues the dollar, and that lowers your purchasing power. This is what Billy just said. That's inflation.
Right. That's the difference between inflation as a general rule and what could create some price increases on certain goods and services. But you have a choice as a consumer. You don't have to buy the foreign good. You can make a choice. If they raise that price, you can choose to buy a good from another company that might not raise their price. So again, you have a choice on what you're going to be doing. It's just really leading to the uncertainty of the economic impact. So it's a short term, it's a psychological thing. The markets react quickly. We take the staircase up when markets are climbing. It's a stairway. Well, when markets decline, you're taking the elevator. It goes down quick. And that's why we tell people to just be nimble, but don't panic when things do this. It feels dark and it feels scary, and people don't know what or when it'll end, how it will end. What is it going to look like? Am I ever going to recover? You remember we talk about having that high watermark value in your mind, is you think that was always going to be the case, but markets will take a few steps up and then take a few steps back sometimes. And we have to keep looking at that from a long-term perspective. The markets reset so fast, and you have to be ready sometimes to react to it, but also to continue to think long-term. Now let's talk about the positives that we think are going to come out of this. All right. Number one, it's America first. Support and benefit to American businesses is what this whole thing was created for and why we're even doing this. Again, consumers are going to have a choice. You buy a foreign good, you buy an American-made good. What do you want to do? Is the price more consistent across the board now? It's going to lead to more American jobs and profitability from American businesses. How do stock values go up? It's all based on earnings. Stock prices go up on the earnings that those companies are producing. So we're trying to provide more earnings opportunities for the U.S. companies right here at home. All right, that's an important point. What are some of the other positives?
Well, I think we're going to raise our revenue, through tariffs. And I know right now it feels like high, but we're going to probably reach a negotiating point where it puts us in a better position to where we are receiving more revenue as a country. Okay, that's the big goal that President Trump has in mind with all of this.
I heard the number
without raising taxes. We're potentially going to cut
Correct.
taxes through all this too.
I heard the number is going to be $600 billion a year in additional revenue from these tariffs,
right?
Which they're going to turn around and have the ability to cut our taxes, our income taxes, which all of you are listening want to pay less taxes. If you say you don't, then you're lying. You don't want to pay taxes. I know you, and you know you, but we also need to cut down the deficit or the debt. So we're going to have the ability to do that as well. And we are big advocates for cutting our debt. We cannot continue this trajectory like that.
Well, Billy, you always use the example, and I think it's a great example of a household. If you have a household that every month is coming up negative and they're just adding it on to their credit card, and they're paying interest on that credit card, that can't go on forever. Eventually, you default on that credit card, right? So we could default on our debt, which would be a terrible thing. So trying to rein that in, I think, is a good thing. So not only with the tariffs, but even with finding inefficiencies in our own government spending and what we're doing there. So the other positives, I think you mentioned this earlier, but bringing jobs back to the United States, incentivizing companies to build more facilities here, provide more jobs here. And you're already hearing companies saying they're making big investments in their projections going forward of what they're going to do in the United States. That's all a good thing. Those are the positives. Now, it doesn't happen overnight. That's what this uncertainty and the volatility is hey, we're ripping off a Band-Aid right now, and ouch, it hurts at first, but longer term, it feels better. Thinking of my kids right now.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
That's a good point, because it is a little hard to accept in the short term. We're not super concerned here, guys. I mean, no one likes to see the markets drop, but I want to remind you all what we say time and time again. It's what you do in these downturns that really affects your long-term wealth. It's what you do. I cannot stress that enough. Is if you take advantage of these times and these corrections, and when they are presented, and you go against the herd that's panicking and making incorrect decisions, your wealth will benefit from this at some point. We don't know when these things finally stop and start going back up. But there are a lot of good, very smart people in this administration and in this cabinet. Now, I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican. I don't care. What I care about is wanting to get through the propaganda that so many of these media outlets are pushing. I'm trying to make sure that we all thinking rationally and logically about who's doing what and why. Do you honestly think, say to yourself this, do you think that Trump would want to destroy the country? That's what they're saying. He's going to destroy democracy. He's going to destroy everything that our country stands for. He's a dictator. He's taking all the power. He's going to be never ever give up power. He's going to steal our Social Security. They're saying that about him and also Elon. He's going to take our Social Security. How is that possible? These guys are business people. They think differently than most, and they certainly think differently than paid politicians or paid news media, whose job is to stir your emotions and also have some maybe different views on the world, right? Let's just say that they want almost to see some of these countries do poorly. It's a sick way of thinking, but they want to see companies go down just so Trump will look bad or this administration won't succeed, which I find very disturbing. I don't see that on the other side, rooting for companies to go out of business or do poorly. I just don't see that going on. So I want people to stop and take a look at the media sources that they're listening to, understand this is coming from a business standpoint, and something needed to happen. I'm sorry, but something needed to change, and we're now living through it, and it's hopefully setting up for more prosperity down the road.
Focus on the things you can control. I always go back to that. What can you control? You can't control what the Dow or the S&P is going to do day to day. You can control your investment allocation. You can control your investing or spending habits. You can control your mindset. I think that's so big right now.
Yeah.
With what you're being fed with on a daily basis. Sometimes I'm going to say probably all times, it's better to turn it off. Take that out of your daily pattern so you don't get into this negative mindset all the time, because that can destroy investors' behaviors or blow up financial plans
and your life and your health in general.
And we've talked about that a lot.
We're concerned about that from the standpoint of just making sure you pay attention to what's necessary. If you have to turn off the apps or turn off the news, do it. because it's not helping. It's not serving you. We're watching your stuff. We're watching your portfolios. We're making changes when we think they need to be made. But sometimes, folks, it just means staying around. You know, the money is made in the waiting, not in the trading. You don't trade your way to wealth.
Wow. You need to patent that. You need to trademark that.
Thank you. I'm planning on it.
Copyright.
I
I don't
just
know what the
came up with that.
appropriate term is.
Sometimes you come up with things, but it's important to make sure that you're not reacting and you're not listening to all the folks that are trying to get you to react.
Yeah. And to
something.
Be clear, it's not like our phones are ringing off the hook, people saying, get me out, get me out. Haven't taken one of those calls since this has started. So it's not like the fire alarms are going off, but we're trying to get ahead of this for you. And that's why we wanted to put this video out today, because obviously the market is struggling with the tariffs that were announced yesterday.
Right. It's coming through, guys. So watch, let this pass by, because it will pass by. The initial reaction can sometimes be violent. We don't know where the levels are going to end or shake out or finally settle, and when the thing climbs back again. But remember, markets go through ups and downs. This is part of it. They go through bear markets and bull markets, and it's interesting how we get to define those, or who gets to define those. And it's like we adopt this phrase or this terminology for the environment that we're in. And I just want people to please stop thinking everything is terrible and everything is negative. It's not. Try to look at it through a different lens. Try to look at it, but what is the purpose and the point? What do we get positive out of this? Couldn't we get some tax cuts? Would that benefit us or you? Or would you be happy about that? Would our debt go down? Should we be happy about that? Or should we just keep spending recklessly and eventually destroy the entire way of life that we've been used to? These are consequences, and we need to make sure that we're dealing with them, just like you do in your own household. You can't go crazy and then expect you're just going to keep your home and your cars and all the things that you've bought. Somewhere down the line, somebody's going to come back and collect. So make sure that you understand why we're doing the things we're doing. Our position is good long-term companies. We're not playing the stock market. I hear that all the time. We're not playing anything. We're investing in good businesses. All right. So remember, you own shares in those. And that's what we need to remember. And when share prices go on sale, here's an opportunity to get more shares of those good businesses. So take that for what it's worth. But if you have the ability, I'm not sure why people wouldn't want to invest when the market gives them the opportunity. Call us if you have questions. We're here. That's why we're putting out these videos, guys, so you know what we're thinking, and we're trying to put some real context around what's happening. Hope that helped.
Thank you all. Thanks for tuning in.
Take care, everybody.